Good evening, everyone. I told my colleagues this morning that I would be really happy if I would still see 3 people. And actually, there's actually still a lot of people, so thanks a lot. It's always much nicer to speak to quite a crowd. I'm Peter Vermaercke, and this talk it's yet another talk about AI. I'm sorry, maybe you've heard already a lot about it, but I'll try to be brief about it. But I really want you to start thinking in terms of co-creating with AI and not just coexisting. Maybe you all have ideas that you want to build a company around, and this will be crucial for you to really understand the possibilities of AI and to really go towards the future. I'm a strategist at In the Pocket. I have some experience in product design. I actually have a background in communication science. And typically, I'm not an entrepreneur myself, but I guide entrepreneurs as a strategist in making decisions. Typically, they come to me with an idea, sometimes this kind of crazy ideas that are written on a napkin. And my goal is to really bring that idea into a concrete concept and turn it into reality, and also validate it along the way, because sometimes the outcome of my work is simply telling them it's a really great idea, but there is no business in it, and that's also super valuable. And for the last few years, I was really interested in the crossover of artificial intelligence and user experience. So it's like, two worlds colliding. I work for In the Pocket. We are a digital product studio with a headquarter in Ghent. You can see our office here. Of what we do. I mean, we obviously we write code, as you can see on the video, but there's actually 2 aspects to this. One is better products. We're a digital product studio, so that means we build digital products. Some of them you probably use on a weekly basis, like Payconic, or It's Me. There are some other applications like an app here that we built specifically for treating skin cancer, that hopefully you haven't needed before, but in case you need it, it may actually help you a lot. The other aspect is bigger futures, which means we're really looking into the future and trying to find possibilities for your next idea, for your next product. And obviously that often involves technology. I'm not an AI expert. We are not AI experts or an AI company. In the sense that we are a bit agnostic of technology. We always work with bleeding edge technology, and AI is obviously a super important one that has come up in the last 4 or 5 years. And this talk is also not so much about technology in itself, but rather how you can actually use it to your advantage and to the advantage of the people you're trying to help with your business. The thing is, if you read the media, it feels like every new week there's a new breakthrough. This kind of slide, I probably need to change it again in a few weeks. I just added some examples here of new projects that arrived, in the last few weeks. And the field of AI is changing really rapidly. But yeah, a lot of talk is about generative AI, but what does it actually mean? Generative AI is just a way for AI to generate new content, which is very different from what it used to be. AI was a lot about altering existing content. This is really about creating something new. And some of the tools here that you see, you probably know. Some of them you may not know. And in this case, it's generating a lot of things. So ChatGPT is maybe the most well-known at the moment, which can help you generate text. But there are many other tools, and each week there are new tools coming. And you may ask yourself, like, why actually now is there all of a sudden so much buzz about AI? There are actually 3 main reasons. The first one is maybe a technological reason. So researchers at Google found a better way to analyze data in a much more efficient way. So it was possible to have an algorithm that could digest much more data. At the same time, we also have so much more computing power, which obviously also has an ecological cost, which we could hear in the previous talk. But so we can train models on really lots and lots of data. And the third one, which is a really crucial one, is a very great user experience. Using ChatGPT is very easy. Anybody could do it. And it helps bring these tools with a lot more people. And this brings us to the hype that we have now. But obviously, it's not just AI. There are many other technologies. There is voice technologies, mixed reality, also the metaverse. I don't know. Some of you might have forgotten about it, but it's still there. And obviously, also a lot of hidden stuff that most people are not aware of. Things like quantum computing is something that is actually being built as we speak, and that will change our lives as well. And it's possible that if you see all these things that you feel like the people from a commercial for some kind of anti-diarrhea medicine. And it's perfectly normal as a reaction that you get this. But then when you read media even more, it gets even worse, right? Because it turns out that probably in most fields that you're working in, you've seen these headlines like AI will replace designers, AI is going to replace journalists, and obviously AI is going to change, going to replace marketeers. So the conclusion, if you read all this, is that including myself, everyone here will be replaced by AI. Right? I don't know. Do you agree? No? I see somebody. No, I don't agree as well. I think definitely there is a lot of future for all of us. First of all, every technology has its flaws, right? We've seen this also with ChatGPT. In one way, it's extremely powerful. In another way, it can be extremely stupid. You can ask ChatGPT actually how to do your electrical wiring of your house. It will probably burn down your place, right? But it gives you an answer that sounds very plausible. So that's one thing. Obviously, another one is that humans are awesome. And even ChatGPT knows it. If you ask ChatGPT what humans are really good at, it will tell you creative thinking. That's something that all of you are doing every day. We're not even aware of it, but it's something that's natural to us. The second one is obviously this emotional intelligence, which I think is super important if you want to create a good user experience. You need to have this emotional intelligence, understand the impact of the things you're building that it has on your users. And the third one, which I think is super important for entrepreneurs, new technologies always bring new opportunities. And this is an example here. PromptBase is a product where you can actually sell prompts. And a prompt is simply a line of text that gets you a certain result with a tool like Midjourney to generate images, or a tool like ChatGPT to get text. And what's interesting, if you look on LinkedIn, you already see there are prompt engineers. There's even a prompt engineer working at VRT, our national broadcaster. So you see, those are jobs that didn't exist 2 years ago, and all of a sudden you get prompt engineers. So new technologies, new opportunities. It's just a matter of you to take them, basically. So what I want you to convince of is that we need to move from coexistence and just accept that these tools are here to co-creation, and to really embrace these tools and make sure that you use them to the maximum. And I'm giving you 3 steps today to do just that. The first one is to be more empathetic, because I think that's something that really separates us from a simple machine that can also generate ideas. And what's always important is that regardless of the technology, a product should always solve a human need. And we should never forget that. And AI will not help you figure out what that need specific should be. So you will need to have insights and make sure that you come up with something that is really worth solving. And that's where your ideas and your creative thinking comes in. Typically, when we look at innovation these days, it starts from the bottom, right? So we have technology, we have our users, and we have business. So typically you see a shiny technology and you come up with something and say, okay, I want to build something with that. And that's how innovation starts. But there are obviously two other ways to think about it. One of my favorite ones is the user-centered problem solving, where you really start from user needs. You look at certain problems or frustrations that people may have, and you try to solve those. At the same time, you can also start from a business-driven approach and really try to look at, okay, as a business, these are issues we're having. How could we actually solve that with the use of technology? And what's interesting here is probably you all have very different backgrounds. There's plenty of backgrounds here, students from all kinds of departments. The thing is, we're in this together, right? If you really want to build something meaningful, you'll need people from all different backgrounds to actually come up with a good solution. And that's why also at In the Pocket, we always have cross-functional teams. So we don't just have a bunch of engineers or a bunch of designers or a bunch of strategists. We always try to mix so that we have all different aspects around the table. So that's really crucial. The second advice I'm giving you is to always stay curious. That can sometimes be really difficult because there's a lot coming up. And if we look at the big technological trends of the last decades, we can see that in the 80s and 90s, we obviously had the PC that came up. Then we had this wave of mobile. And the problem with that is that typically when a new technology arises, we always underestimate the effect in the long term, and we overestimate the effect in the short term. There's even a name for that. It's called Amara's law. So typically, our brain thinks in a linear manner. So we think, okay, this technology is not here, and then it just goes through society, and all of a sudden, everyone has it. But in reality, it's different. In reality, it goes a bit like this. It takes a slow start, and it goes then really fast. And the key is to be there when it goes really fast, because otherwise you've missed the boat. Now, I'm willing to say here that AI is probably going to affect the next few decades in a really crucial way. And again, the question is, how can you make sure that you're ready when this curve starts to turn again? Now, you may have a feeling that things are coming at us faster and faster. And if we have a look at how PCs reach their peak, you see this kind of slow, not very steep curve. Then if we look at smartphones, or mobile in this case, already goes a bit faster. And then smartphones, you see that it's steeper and steeper, which means that adoption cycles are actually accelerating. So if you have the feeling that things are coming faster and faster at you, that's true. It really is. And AI is a nice example of that. ChatGPT actually reached 100 million users much faster than a tool like TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. So things are coming at us faster at an unprecedented rate. And that's why I think as an entrepreneur, it's really important that you also learn how to spot trends. Because there will be more and more things coming at you, and it's important to always try and understand what actually the impact of something might be. And there is, again, three sides of looking at it. And a good trend, a trend that really will have an impact, will combine typically those three things. So always keep that in mind. If something new is arising, look at it from those aspects and try to imagine if this could actually be something very impactful. Now, the last point is always experiment. I think experimenting is crucial in entrepreneurship. You need to try out things, and it's simply the only way to really understand the impact of a technology. Now, experimentation is just one thing. You also need to do it fast, because as we saw, adoption cycles are accelerating. You don't have time to overthink. You don't have the chance to say, okay, let me think about AI for 5 years, and then I will give you my answer. Sorry, but that's too late. So you don't overthink, you just try. And typically, we cannot foresee what actually the impact will be over time. So here are just a few examples of how we at In the Pocket were using AI in the last few months that may give you some ideas for your own businesses as well. The first one is a lot about creativity at scale. We're doing similar to things to what we were doing before. We are now just able to do it at a much larger scale. Here are some examples of, we were building a tool that can be used by different cities around the world. Now, typically, you want to somehow have a custom background so that they kind of identify with the tool. If you would need to do that with stock photography, that would be super costly. In this case, we generated with Midjourney specific backgrounds for each and every city in the world, so they could actually have a custom background. Another example here is Midjourney. It's a tool that lets you generate new images, but it also lets you describe certain images. So in this case, we fed the algorithm an image, and it kind of describes this to us. You can see actually the descriptions on the slide of what it thinks that it sees. And based on that, you can make, again, new variations. So it's a very easy way to be creative. It's like you have a designer sitting next to you that gives you certain ideas of like, maybe have you thought about this, or maybe think about this style. And obviously this in a very fast way. Another example of something that started as a stupid idea, but turned out to be really fun. In this case, my colleague Liam was experimenting with in-painting. So that means that you place a new object within an image. And here with a prompt, you can take a photo and you can say, make this person a knight or an astronaut. And basically on the fly, you generate a completely new image. It's a fun experiment, but through this, we learned a lot about this technology. And the next time we may have to adapt it or use it, we'll be ready for it. There's another colleague of mine that created something with augmented reality. So you can paint on a, in this case, he's pointing a smartphone at a wall. You can paint an area on it and just give a prompt. And the algorithm will actually put this live in your camera feed. Some more experiments. You can feed video and say, I want to see it in the style of Van Gogh or in the style of The Simpsons. These are small, fun experiments of which you learn how to use the technology. And again, the impact, you only see it on the long term. In the short term, it's just fun to work on. In the long term, it may change your business completely. Another nice example is about workflow optimization. So ChatGPT version 4 came out a few weeks ago, and we decided to integrate it in our favorite communication tool at our company, which is Slack. In this case, we call it Chat ITP. And it's just basically we integrated this in this way, ChatGPT, into our daily tools that we can access, so that makes the workflow much easier to work with. In this case, we can use it for all kinds of things. It can transcribe videos. It can help us translate things. It can summarize things. And it does this in a natural language interface. So that makes it very natural to do. One example here is you can say, I want to do bike leasing. And in this case, ChatITP will give you the correct answer. Yeah. In this case, it's also super important for us that it's context aware. So we can say, this is actually in the context of this client. So it's not just trained on everything. We can actually train it on very specific things, which again will be helpful for you too. And what's really important there is that you have this principle in UX design, which is called pave the cow path. You basically release a product, and then you kind of see how people actually use it. And based on that, you create new parts of your product. And I think in entrepreneurship, this is a crucial thing to do. Now, maybe a last thing, obviously, as an entrepreneur, you will need to do branding and marketing as well. And that really changed a lot. Shift is our yearly conference, and we decided to do the whole branding and all the imagery with Midjourney. So it was a really interesting experiment. And it allows you to really create a visual language that you fully control. I mean, doing this in a photo shoot would be much more costly. But there is also obviously a lot of text. In this case, there is Ali, which is an AI email assistant that can help you to write text in a specific way. It can change your tone of voice. It can also summarize emails for you. This can actually save you a lot of time so that you can focus on different things. So these are all small time savers that could be really useful for you. And as a closing thing, maybe an example of a company that's doing really interesting stuff too is called Alan. It's an insurance, and they have a really funny mascot. And they were using now generative AI to use it in all their branding and really bump it into the next level. Doing these kind of things with 3D tools would be super costly, but with new AI tools, they were able to do it very cheap and in a really fun way. So to conclude, 3 steps sounds simple, and it really is. Be more empathetic, always stay curious, and never stop experimenting. Good luck with your ideas.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter, for your super inspiring talk. Before I let you go grab a drink, I have one burning question for you. So Elon Musk and many other scientists and engineers have been talking about their belief that we as human beings actually need a break from AI in order to really adapt to the new technology. What's your take on that?
I think it's a very naive thing to think that you can just stop progress for 6 months. Today he actually launched a new AI startup himself. So I think it was more the businessman of Musk that was speaking in getting a bit of a competitive advantage. But honestly, no, I don't think that's a good idea. What we do need is good research. We need good designers, psychologists, people working on these things to better understand how these technologies impact us, and also make sure that we are doing it in ethical ways. We will need regulation around this. But just by saying, let's stop for 6 months, that's too naive. I don't think that works. So
yes. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.